As where it stands right now, there's 6 teams that have a shot at making it to the championship game. I'm going to break it down step by step, what has to happen for each SEC team to make the championship, what they got to do, and what some other teams got to do to help them out. The loser of the SEC championship game in this new 12-team college football playoff, if they were projected to make the playoff before the SEC championship game, they should still make it after the championship game, even if they lose. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we got to talk about a crazy, and I mean an absolutely crazy situation that involves the SEC. As some of you may have or may not known, heading into last week, there was a legit possibility of the SEC ending in an 8-way tiebreaker. With Missouri and LSU losing in this most recent weekend, that knocks them out, but there is still a chance this ends in a 6-way tiebreaker. But here's the biggest question. Okay, if that does happen, who wins the tiebreaker and who's playing for the SEC championship? And we're going to talk a little bit about this. Do you even want to play for the SEC championship? I know that may sound weird to some of y'all. You're sitting there saying, well, Matt, why wouldn't I want my team to play for an SEC championship? And trust me, we're going to get to all that. It's really interesting. I'll leave you with this. Be careful for what you wish for. We're also going to talk about something that involves Travis Hunter. There's a tweet that involves him that's been trending. We're going to talk all about that. Strap in, buckle up, get you a snack, get you a popcorn, get your favorite meal you like to eat when you watch a video. Because trust me, I do the same thing. But all right, Matt, blah, blah, shut the crap up. Now, without further ado, let's get in. All right, first things first, let's start off with this Travis Hunter situation. This came across my desk earlier today, and I was like, you know what? That is a fair argument. This tweet states, best running back in the nation, Ashton Jeanty. Best wide receiver, McMillan. Best cornerback, Will Johnson. Most snaps, who cares? If you don't know what this tweet is referring to, it's kind of throwing, or not kind of, it is throwing shade towards Travis Hunter saying, who cares that he plays the most snaps? He's not the best at any position. And honestly, as much as I love Travis Hunter, that is a great argument to have against him. Like it says, a jack of all trades is a master of none. If y'all don't know how I feel about the Heisman race currently, I have Travis Hunter as my front runner. I think he's the best player in college football. He's a freak. He makes so many big time and clutch plays, and that's what I love about him. When you pull up the stats, does he have the best numbers? No. But what Travis Hunter does have and he possesses is elite ball skills, and he's always around the football. Have you noticed that? And it's not a coincidence. Great players, for some odd reason, are always around the football. And although I do think this is a fair argument, I disagree with this. He's a jack of all trades, master of none. That's nonsense. To me, just because I stated earlier it's a good or fair argument, it doesn't mean I agree with it. Where I'm getting at with this, if you are trying to argue to others that he shouldn't be the front runner for a Heisman, that is a good starting point. But let's not kid ourselves. For almost every single college football team out here, he would be CB1 or wide receiver 1. Travis Hunter is what I label as a natural born athlete. You put him anywhere on that field, he's going to excel. That's my thoughts on that. Let me know in the comment section, who is your Heisman front runner? And if you think Travis Hunter's overrated, explain why. I think he's perfectly rated. The dude's the real deal. Let's get into this SEC talk, though, because this is where things get fascinating. As we all know, the SEC has been what I've labeled as a gauntlet this season, and in reality, it's been a gauntlet every single year the past 20 years. And in this conference, it feels like anybody can beat anybody. The team that is ranked second to last in the conference currently, Kentucky, beat Ole Miss and lost to Georgia by 1. If that doesn't tell you all you need to know about this conference this year, I don't know what will. And as where it stands right now, Texas and Texas A&M both are your front runners in the conference. They are sitting at an impressive 5-1, and right behind them, you got UGA, Georgia at number 3, Tennessee at number 4, Alabama at number 5, and Ole Miss at 6. I only share the top 6 with you because at this point in time, those are the only ones that really matter. And it appears to seem that things are about to get chaotic in the SEC, and they're going to get chaotic fast. And here's where things get dicey, and we'll come back to this a little later after I explain everything. Lane Kiffin stated only a couple hours ago, I've talked to other coaches. The reward to get a bye in the CFP versus the risk to get knocked down completely, that's a really big risk. Kiffin also stated, and I quote, I think it has ended up being a very unique situation of all postseason sports, the way the system is set up there. How could you go to the SEC Championship and get knocked out of the CFP race? And if you don't go to the SEC Championship game, you're in. There's cost and benefit to everything. There's great benefits to this playoff system and so many people being excited and fans and programs and more games. And then there's cost too. The conference championships don't mean as much. In my humble opinion, he's 100% right. And I said it last year. After Georgia lost to Alabama in the SEC Championship, I still had him in my top 4, if some of y'all remember. I'm standing 10 toes down on this. There's no way Georgia wasn't one of the best 4 teams last year. No way. And I get it. They didn't win the game against Bama. There's only 4 spots, so I'm not completely mad they didn't get in, but I still felt like they was one of the best 4 teams. But that's really a different conversation for a different day, or not even a different day. It's a conversation we had last year. Getting back on track this year, if there's 2 SEC teams, they made it to the SEC championship, I don't understand how you could say the loser of that game, if they were in the playoff before the game, like projected to be in the top 12, how could you take them out of the playoff after a SEC championship loss? That is stupidity at its finest, and what makes it not fair is you got Notre Dame sitting on their butts, and if you put them in while they're sitting on their butts, oh man, that's really going to frustrate me. We'll cross that bridge when we get there, but the loser of the SEC championship game in this new 12-team college football playoff, if they were projected to make the playoff before the SEC championship game, they should still make it after the championship game, even if they lose. Now that I've addressed that, let's take a look at how in the world all of this is going to pan out in the SEC. As where it stands right now, there's 6 teams that have a shot at making it to the championship game. Texas, Texas A&M, Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama, Ole Miss. I'm going to break it down step by step, what has to happen for each SEC team to make the championship, what they got to do, and what some other teams got to do to help them out. Here's how the tiebreaker system works. Step number 1, head-to-head results between tied teams. Step number 2, record against common SEC opponents. Number 3, performance against the highest-ranked common opponent in the standings. 4, cumulative winning percentage of all opponents facing conference play. 5, point differential. And 6, random draw. It probably won't get to that. Top 2 teams in this conference. This one's fairly simple. Texas, win out, you're in. Texas A&M, win out, you're in. It's as simple as that for both of those teams. And the loser of that game, you're still going to have a slither of a chance, but it's going to come down to the tiebreaker, and that's not going to work out in A&M or Texas's favor. The third-ranked team in the SEC currently, the Georgia Bulldogs. Now, you would think they have a great chance of making the SEC championship, but they actually don't. For them to get in, obviously they got to win out, but they need help from Alabama. And by help, I mean Alabama needs to lose. I know what you're sitting there saying, because it can be confusing. Matt, why does Alabama have a better chance of making the SEC championship than Georgia? And it's a great question, my friend. Fantastic question. I'd love to answer it for you. If it ends in a tiebreaker, all 5 of these teams you're looking at right here, they don't have a common opponent amongst them all. So this then goes to a cumulative conference winning percentage. And in that case and scenario, Alabama has the advantage because they're leading in that category. Moving on down here, Tennessee, they need a lot to happen. They need multiple teams to lose, and Tennessee has to win out. Tennessee has a very small chance. I think it's even smaller than Ole Miss's, and Ole Miss is like at 1 or 2. Unfortunately for Ole Miss, their winning percentage is only at 400, and as you can see, Alabama's is at 509. And last but not least for Alabama, they're the team that's got to be feeling the best, and I think they have, outside Texas, the highest percentage of making the SEC championship. Number 1, Alabama has to beat Oklahoma on the road, and they have to beat Auburn at home. Much easier said than done. And number 2, they need Missouri to lose one of their next 2 games. Or my apologies, I say lose. No. Missouri needs to win one of their next 2 games, which should happen. As to where it stands right now, if you want to go off percentages, it's looking like it's going to be Texas and Alabama in the playoff. That is if everything goes accordingly. However, as we've seen, you don't know what's going to happen in this conference. May I remind you, Alabama lost to Vanderbilt, and Ole Miss lost at home to Kentucky. That's Kentucky's only win in the SEC. The next most likely scenario is the winner, Texas A&M. They're getting in, and they could play if Alabama loses, or if Missouri doesn't win one of their next 2, Georgia gets in. If you are a fan of any of these teams, here would be some words of advice. Don't worry about any of this. Just worry about your team. The last thing you want to be doing is, for example, if you're an Alabama fan, rooting for Missouri to beat Mississippi State, and then you look up and Alabama loses to Oklahoma. That defeats the purpose. At the end of the day, you got to control what you can control. And plus, too, like we talked about earlier, it might work out better for you if you don't make the SEC championship. And I've seen some fans talking about it, but me personally, as a competitor and as a fan, why wouldn't you want to play in the SEC championship? I want to see my favorite team playing on championship weekend. That's one of the best feelings in the world, knowing your team made it and every other team, they're not playing that day. But hey, that's just me. I'm curious. Let me know your thoughts down below. But